of us find ourselves racing against time, constantly pushing to achieve more and keep up with the demands of modern life. But what happens when we lose sight of what truly matters? This video explores the journey to rediscover balance and fulfillment by reconnecting with our deepest values and life priorities. Meet Alex, a busy professional who's constantly in motion. From one project to the next, from meeting deadlines to managing personal commitments, Alex feels as if there's never enough time. Like many of us, Alex is striving for success, recognition, and financial security. But somewhere along the way, Alex has lost sight of something important. As Alex races through each day, there's little time to pause and breathe, let alone reflect. And while accomplishments add up, so does an underlying feeling of emptiness. Many of us, it was a Friday night, but instead of winding down, Alex found himself hunched over his laptop, eyes strained from the glare of the screen. Another late night, another deadline. He rubbed his temples, glancing at the clock as it crept toward midnight. The apartment was silent, his phone buzzing occasionally with unread messages from friends he hadn't seen in weeks. Just as he clicked to send off the last email, he heard a soft knock on his door. His neighbor, Mrs. Collins, an elderly woman with a warm smile, stood there holding a small potted plant. "I thought you might need a break," she said kindly, placing the plant on his cluttered desk. "Thanks, Mrs. Collins, but I don't have time for breaks," Alex replied, half smiling. She paused, giving him a thoughtful look. "You know, my late husband used to say that the work will always be there, but time to breathe won't." With that, she patted his hand and left. Later that night, as Alex lay in bed, he couldn't shake her words. They lingered, stirring something deep within him. Exhaustion had been his constant companion for weeks, and even as achievements piled up, satisfaction remained elusive. Despite all his effort, he felt empty. He remembered the excitement he once had, the motivation to excel, yet now he only felt pressure to perform and deliver. The next morning, Alex looked in the mirror. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. "Why am I doing this?" he whispered, almost to himself. The question echoed through his mind, one he hadn't allowed himself to confront before. What was the point of racing against time, always pushing for the next goal, if he couldn't even remember the last time he truly felt fulfilled? As he trudged back to his desk, he couldn't shake the sense that something important was missing, something he had forgotten in his endless pursuit of productivity. And in that quiet moment, an unsettling realization began to take root. Maybe he wasn't truly working toward anything meaningful after all. That Saturday, desperate for a break, Alex decided to take a walk in the park near his apartment. The air was crisp. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the path. His mind was still racing with unfinished tasks, but the quiet scenery gradually began to calm him. As he walked by the lake, he noticed an elderly man sitting alone on a bench, feeding crumbs to the ducks drifting lazily across the water. Alex hesitated, then decided to sit a few feet away, enjoying the stillness. The elderly man turned, giving him a friendly nod. "Looks like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders," the man observed with a smile. Alex laughed lightly, surprised at how accurately a stranger had read him. "You could say that," he replied. "Work never seems to end, and it always feels like I'm racing against time." The old man nodded knowingly. "I remember those days," he said, looking out over the lake. "For 40 years, I did the same, pushing myself to work harder, climb higher, thinking that one day I'd finally have enough time for everything that really mattered." He sobbed, the sound heavy with regret. "But time isn't something you earn by working more. I had to learn that the hard way." Intrigued, Alex asked, "What happened?" The man faintly smiled, the kind of smile that held years of memories. "One night, I was at the office late, just like any other night. My daughter called to ask if I'd make it to her school play. I told her I'd try, but not to count on it. After I hung up, it hit me that I'd missed almost every one of her performances. And then I realized that while I was busy chasing a career, I'd missed so many moments that mattered." Alex was quiet, letting the words sink in. The man continued, his gaze distant. "When I retired, I thought I'd finally have time to catch up. But life doesn't wait. My daughter had grown up, my friends had moved on, and I was left wondering what it was all for. I thought I was winning some race, but in truth, I'd missed the entire view." He looked back at Alex, his eyes soft but serious. "Be careful. Don't wait until it's too late to see what truly matters. Alex felt a chill, as if the words had struck something deep within him. "Thank you," he murmured, not quite sure what else to say. They sat in silence for a while, watching the lake. When the man eventually left, Alex stayed behind, staring at the water as it reflected the evening sky. The old man's words echoed in his mind, "Time isn't something you earn." It was a Monday morning, and Alex was running late. His phone buzzed with back-to-back notifications as he juggled his briefcase, laptop, and coffee on his way to the office. Just as he reached the crosswalk outside his building, he glanced up and saw a little girl, no older than 7, tugging on her mother's hand as they waited for the light to change. The girl was giggling, pointing at a pigeon pecking crumbs by the curb, and her laughter echoed through the otherwise busy street. As Alex waited beside them, he heard the mother chuckle and say, "Do you remember when we saw a squirrel last week? Just like that pigeon." The girl nodded enthusiastically as if it were the most exciting memory. Alex watched them, feeling a pang of envy. It had been ages since he'd paused long enough to notice the world around him, let alone share such simple moments. Caught up in his thoughts, he almost missed the light turning green. As he rushed forward, the girl turned to him, giving a wide, innocent smile. He smiled back reflexively, but felt a surprising heaviness settle in his chest. The day wore on, filled with meetings, emails, and endless calls. By the time Alex looked up, the office was nearly empty, and the sun was dipping below the horizon. Suddenly, that moment with the girl and her mother replayed in his mind. Why had that simple interaction affected him so much? He tried to shake it off, but the question lingered, gnawing at him. After a long pause, he muttered to himself, "What am I really working for?" As if on cue, his phone buzzed, a message from his sister. "Hey, family dinner Friday, haven't seen you in forever." Staring at the message, Alex felt a pang of guilt. He couldn't remember the last time he'd spent an evening with his family, let alone shared a genuine laugh. He had missed birthdays, dinners, even small gatherings, always telling himself he was too busy or that he'd make it up to them later. For the first time, he didn't have a quick answer for his sister's text. Instead, he stared at the message, the voices of the old man at the lake and the little girl on the street echoing in his mind. In a quiet moment of realization, he wondered, was he missing out on his own life in his relentless pursuit of success? That night, after a long day, Alex sat alone on his couch, a faint glow from the city lights spilling through the window. He found himself lost in thought. Mrs. Collins's words, the old man's story, and the laughter of that little girl echoing through his mind. As he stared blankly at his coffee table, memories began to surface. He saw himself at his niece's birthday last year, slipping out early to answer a work call. He recalled his best friend's wedding, where he'd spent half the ceremony scrolling through emails. He'd even missed his father's retirement party because of an urgent project. A deep sense of regret washed over him. These weren't just missed events. They were missed connections, moments he could never get back. The weight of it all pressed down on him, and he let out a long sigh. "What am I doing?" he whispered to the empty room. Just then, his phone lit up with a photo his sister had sent, a family dinner from years ago. They were all laughing, leaning close, his niece's face covered in cake frosting as she beamed up at him. Alex stared at the picture, feeling an ache in his chest. He remembered that night vividly. He'd been fully present, enjoying every second. When was the last time he felt like that? In that quiet moment, he made a decision. Picking up his phone, he dialed his sister's number. "Hey, Alex," she greeted, surprised. "Hey," he replied, feeling a bit sheepish. I wanted to let you know I'll be at dinner on Friday. No work interruptions this time, I promise." There was a pause, and then she laughed. "Are you sure? Do you remember how to turn off your phone?" Alex chuckled, feeling a bit of the tension ease. "I'm serious. I've missed too many moments already. I want to start being there." After hanging up, Alex felt a strange but comforting resolve. He knew it wouldn't be easy to break old habits, but he was ready to start. For the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of excitement about reconnecting with his family, friends, and the little things he'd once loved. As he sat there, Alex whispered to himself, "It's time to focus on what truly matters." Over the next few weeks, Alex began to make small, deliberate changes. The first was setting a hard stop at 6 p.m. each day, no matter how many emails or tasks lingered. At first, it felt strange, even irresponsible, but he pushed through, reminding himself of his promise. One evening, he joined his family for dinner. The usual clamor of voices, laughter, and clinking dishes filled the room. Alex's niece tugged at his arm, asking him to play a game with her, and for once, he didn't check his watch or phone. He found himself laughing, really laughing as they played, feeling lighter than he had in years. Another day, his best friend Rob invited him to a weekend hike, a tradition they used to love but had abandoned long ago. "You actually made it," Rob teased as Alex arrived at the trailhead looking genuinely surprised. "Yeah, I'm trying this new thing," Alex replied with a grin. "It's called having a life." They laughed and set off down the trail, the crisp air filling their lungs. As they reached a viewpoint overlooking a river, Alex took a deep breath, feeling a quiet peace he hadn't felt in years. "You know," he said, "I can't believe I used to say I didn't have time for this." Rob nodded. "Life isn't just about what you accomplish, Alex. It's also about moments like these." Back at work, Alex even started saying no to projects that didn't align with his values, resisting the pressure to accept every task thrown his way. He spent more time listening to his team, connecting with them, instead of rushing through meetings. To his surprise, productivity didn't plummet as he feared. It actually improved as he became more intentional with his time. One night, as he sat on his couch with a book in hand, his phone buzzing quietly with work emails, Alex smiled and let it go unanswered. In that stillness, he felt a growing sense of balance, a new appreciation for the moments he had reclaimed. For the first time, he was no longer running against the clock. Instead, he was living in sync with it. As the weeks turned into months, Alex's life looked noticeably different. Gone was the constant rush, the frantic need to always be one step ahead. Instead, he'd learned to let go of the chase and appreciate the quiet moments in between. One evening, his team gathered to celebrate the successful launch of a big project. Alex, for once, wasn't the last one to leave the office. Instead, he invited his team out to a nearby cafe, and they spent hours chatting about everything except work, travel plans, hobbies, even their favorite foods. His colleague Sarah leaned over with a grin. Who would have thought the legendary workaholic could let loose like this? Alex laughed, shaking his head. I guess I'm learning there's more to life than climbing ladders and hitting goals. She raised her cup in a toast. To balance, then. To balance, Alex echoed, clinking his cup with hers, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with his career. That weekend, he joined Rob for another hike. As they reached the summit, Alex took a deep breath, filling his lungs with crisp mountain air. This feels incredible, he said, his eyes tracing the distant horizon. Rob smirked, nudging him. Better than answering emails at midnight? Way better, Alex chuckled. He paused, his gaze thoughtful. You know, for so long I thought I needed to be the best, constantly achieving, constantly improving. But I feel more fulfilled now than I ever did racing up the corporate ladder. Funny how that works, Rob said, clapping him on the back. You were so busy reaching for the top that you missed the view along the way. Back at home, Alex continued to prioritize moments of calm. Some evenings he'd spend time with his niece, helping her with a puzzle or watching her favorite cartoon. Other nights, he'd sit by the window with a cup of tea, simply watching the city lights twinkle against the dark sky. One night, his niece looked up from her puzzle and asked, Uncle Alex, are you happy? The question caught him off guard. He looked at her big, curious eyes and thought carefully. Yeah, I am, he replied softly. Happier than I've been in a long time. She smiled, and Alex felt a profound sense of peace settle within him. He no longer felt the relentless pressure to prove himself, or the nagging sense that he was running out of time. Now he was content to live each day fully, embracing balance and appreciating every moment as it came. One quiet evening, Alex found himself sitting alone by his window, a mug of tea warming his hands as he gazed out at the city skyline. The hustle and bustle below seemed far away, a distant reminder of the life he once led. He could hear faint laughter from the neighbors next door, the clink of glasses, the murmur of conversation, a background symphony of people enjoying each other's company. A smile crept onto his face, and he realized that he, too, had finally become part of life's rhythm rather than racing against it. His phone buzzed on the table, and he saw it was a message from his boss. "Great work on the recent project. Your leadership really shows." A few months ago, he would have felt a rush of pride, a validation of his hard work. But now, while he appreciated the acknowledgement, he didn't need it to feel fulfilled. Setting his phone aside, Alex thought back to the turning points in his journey. The moment with the little girl and her mother, the old man's wisdom by the lake, his sister's laughter at family dinners, and the peaceful hikes with Rob. Each memory held a lesson, reminding him of what he'd been missing in his pursuit of success. They were reminders that life was more than milestones. It was a collection of small, beautiful moments that gave it true meaning. Just then, his niece skipped into the room, clutching a sketchbook. "Uncle Alex, look at my drawing," she chirped, thrusting the book into his hands. It was a colorful, scribbled image of her mom, and Alex at a park, all smiling with exaggerated, joyful expressions. "This is amazing, sweetheart," Alex exclaimed, feeling a surge of warmth. "Is this us?" "Yeah," she giggled, pointing at the figures. "See, you're laughing. I like it when you laugh." He ruffled her hair, feeling a lump in his throat. "You know what? I like it too." Later that night, as he tucked her in and watched her drift off to sleep, Alex realized he was grateful for all the little changes that had brought him here. He'd spent so many years trying to prove himself, to be the best, but in doing so, he'd nearly missed the best parts of life. Now, he finally understood that true success wasn't about how much he achieved, but about being present for the moments that mattered. Standing in the doorway of his niece's room, he whispered to himself, "It's not about the race, it's about the journey." He felt a sense of peace settle over him, deeper than anything he'd known before. As he closed her door and headed back to his own room, Alex knew he wouldn't go back to his old ways. His life now had a purpose that wasn't tied to titles or deadlines. Instead, it was rooted in moments of connection, joy, and simplicity, a life that he could finally say was well lived. Alex's story offers a powerful reminder. Life isn't simply a race to the top. It's a journey woven with moments that deserve our attention. His experience nudges us to pause and ask ourselves the same questions he did. Are we working toward goals that genuinely fulfill us, or are we racing against time in pursuit of achievements that may not even bring us real happiness? In a world that often equates success with busyness, it's easy to fall into the trap of relentless striving. We chase careers, accolades, and financial security, believing that the next accomplishment will bring us joy. But Alex's journey shows a different path. It's a path that involves slowing down, reconnecting with loved ones, and valuing experiences as much as, if not more than, outcomes. This shift can lead to a sense of joy and purpose that accomplishments alone often cannot provide. Think about moments in your life when you felt most at peace or most genuinely happy. Were you working to meet a deadline, or were you present with friends or family, savoring a quiet walk, or deeply engaged in a passion project? These moments, often filled with connection and presence, hold lasting meaning. Alex's story reminds us that we don't have to abandon our ambitions. Rather, we need to balance them with moments that keep us connected to who we are and what we truly value. The truth is, many of us become so absorbed in reaching the next big thing that we lose sight of why we're chasing it. Just like Alex, we sometimes need to step back and recalibrate our lives. If you find yourself feeling unfulfilled despite your achievements, maybe it's time to pause and ask what truly matters. It could be family, time spent on a hobby, or even moments of quiet reflection. As Alex learned, fulfillment comes not from the quantity of what we achieve, but from the quality of purpose in our daily lives. If his story resonates with you, consider it an invitation to reflect, reprioritize, and release the constant pressure to do more. You may discover, as Alex did, that life feels richer, more balanced, and more meaningful when you allow yourself to truly savor each moment. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Alex's story. A powerful reminder that life's true measure lies not only in our achievements, but also in the moments of meaning we create along the way. When we're always moving, it's easy to lose sight of what truly brings us joy and fulfillment. But as Alex discovered, stepping back can reveal a path that's richer, more balanced, and more connected to who we are at our core. This story encourages each of us to slow down and make space for moments that nourish us, What brings you fulfillment and peace? What do you want to be remembered for? Reflecting on these questions isn't just a mental exercise, it's a way to shift your priorities and realign your life. Small changes, like spending quality time with loved ones, pursuing a passion, or setting boundaries at work, can make a profound difference in how we experience our days. Embracing this journey doesn't mean abandoning your goals or ambitions. Instead, it's about ensuring they serve your happiness, not just the drive to achieve. The world often pressures us to believe that faster is better, but true fulfillment often lies in the present moment, in quiet evenings with family, in walks at the park, in giving ourselves permission to pause and simply breathe. If Alex's story resonates with you, consider it an invitation to make a shift in your own life. You don't have to make big changes all at once. Even small steps can be transformative. Try setting aside time each day to do something you love, or saying no to one extra task that doesn't align with your values. Small, consistent changes like these can create a life that feels both productive and deeply meaningful. Before we wrap up, we'd love to invite you to subscribe to our channel, Secret of Life, where we explore themes that touch on the deeper questions we all face. And we want to hear from you. What would you like to see next? Perhaps a story on resilience in tough times, the power of gratitude, or finding purpose through failure. Your ideas help shape this channel, so drop your thoughts in the comments. If Alex's journey inspired you, hit that subscribe button and join us as we continue exploring the path to a meaningful life. Thank you for watching, and remember, life's richness isn't found in racing to the end, but in savoring each step